Hey guys, I'm Leo.
I'm Frank.
And welcome to a brand new episode of
Terror Recollect.
What happened to this one?
Oh yeah. Hey guys, thanks for joining us once again. As always, this is episode 6 of Terror Recollect. And as promised, we are going to be dissecting a franchise that I absolutely love and I am so passionate about. And if you haven't guessed it already, it's the Scream franchise. What can I say about Scream? It's freaking perfect. Damn near. I love 1 and 2. I didn't used to love 3. But I do now. And I absolutely hate part 4.
He's not kidding.
Yeah.
He hates part 4.
I hate it. What do you think of it? Do you think that Scream is, do you think Scream is it's right to consider it a modern day classic? Do you think it's up there with Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street?
I think for what it did for the horror genre in the mid 90s, absolutely ranks it on top of that era of films. It changed the way that the studios marketed movies. It changed the way that people looked at movies where they would flip it on itself.
Yep.
So for that, I absolutely think that it does deserve its place of honor. I didn't always think that. Being friends with Frank for 5 years or so has absolutely changed my mentality on Scream. I didn't used to cherish it as a classic. I would think, hey, it was a cool movie when I watched it back then, and it was definitely smart. But now I've really come to enjoy it as a modern day classic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it did the same thing that Halloween did. Like you said, it changed the face of the genre. And Halloween, when it came out, it had a lot of copycats afterwards.
Friday the 13th, my beloved franchise, was admittedly a copycat of Halloween.
Yep. And when Scream came out, it did the exact same thing. You had urban legend with Valentine. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah. Oh, that's the big one. Yeah. Because that was even from Kevin Williamson also.
Yeah. Which I absolutely love. We'll talk about that in another episode.
There was one like Soul Survivors. There was one. And...
but, it did the same exact thing. And that's why people love it. It wasn't a rip-off of Halloween. It actually paid a very nice tribute to Halloween.
Yeah.
As well as a lot of other horror films.
It was anchored in the lineage of Halloween and in the feeling, but it wasn't at all a ripoff.
No, not at all. So let's get down to it. We'll start with the first film, 1996. A lot of people say that this is Wes Craven's baby. In a sense, yes, I consider it Kevin Williamson's baby. He wrote the script, this perfect, brilliant script that needed, the perfect director. Wes Craven came along. Not at first, he was reluctant at first, but then he ended up taking it, which ended up being perfect. The casting was great. Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy.
Drew Barrymore in her brief, almost psycho-esque intro, where this beautiful blonde is introduced and everyone thinks the movie's going to be about her, but it ends up not being about her. Yeah. So yet another little homage there.
Yep. And it's actually, they were supposed to be swapped. Neve Campbell was supposed to play Casey and Drew Barrymore was supposed to play Sydney. It was actually Drew Barrymore's decision to switch.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. It was like, it would make the movie so much better if
I was the one to be killed off. Yeah. And because people wouldn't expect it.
Absolutely.
Let me go into a couple of the characters that I love. Obviously, Neve Campbell plays Sydney. She's one of the greatest, to me, the greatest heroine, or what do you get, Scream Queen, I guess you could say.
Scream Queen, Final Girl, Survivor.
Final Girl is what I was thinking of. She's brilliant. She's been in a lot of movies, as you know. But this movie I think she was really just made for. And let's see, David Arquette.
Courtney Cox.
Yeah, Courtney Cox. Everybody, I can go on and on. Everybody did perfect. One of my favorite parts about this movie, or aspects, is Kevin Williamson's dialogue.
He loves Kevin Williamson's dialogue so much it became his very first tattoo.
Yes. From his script, there's a scene where Billy says, life's one great big movie, only you can't pick your genre. And which I think that's why I got it tattooed, because it's a very good quote and it really relates to everyday life. And but the dialogue is believable. There's comedy in this film, but it's inserted perfectly and it makes sense. What's your favorite scene that kind of stands out?
For me, in Scream, I would say the very, very first Scream would actually be Rose McGowan's character's death scene. Just because I had a crush on Rose McGowan for the longest time.
Not because of the headlights.
Absolutely because of the headlights and the frosty evening that day. And I mean, that's just part of one really amazing scene.
Yeah.
But it was just from beginning to end. It was almost a throwback to old slasher movies where the gorgeous girl kind of comes out and you are, something bad is going to happen to her. That's actually, when I think of Scream, I think of Rose McGowan just coming out into the garage ready to get unknowingly slaughtered.
Yeah. I think when I think of one of my favorite scenes and touching on the subject of dialogue is the scene where Randy, Jamie Kennedy's character, is sitting on the couch. He's drunk. He's the only one there. He's watching Halloween on the TV, and he's sitting there yelling, "No, Jamie, watch out, Jamie, he's around." And meanwhile, right behind him, here comes Ghostface, and he's saying, "Jamie, watch out," and his real name's Jamie Kennedy, and it's like almost like he should be telling himself that.
That's just one of the many ways that the movie was, I think the term is self-referential, where you make obvious of the situation that's happening on the screen, and you're referring to yourself or into similar situations that's happening on screen, as well as how it's connected to the to the movie world. And that's a really cool moment. I really like that scene as well.
And one other thing I love about the whole franchise, actually, in this movie in particular, is the soundtrack and the score by Marco Beltrami.
Oh yeah, right over here.
Yeah, had the pleasure of meeting him, Leo and I.
He was cool as hell.
Yeah, very nice guy.
Super cool.
And his Trouble in Woodsboro score or snippet is just freaking amazing. It's like the theme song for Scream, and the soundtrack had there's a song that plays at the beginning, toward the beginning, where Sydney and Billy are kind of making out, and there's it's Don't Fear the Reaper, but it's a remix by Gus. And it's very slow and dramatic and just kind of mellow too, but it's really...
And that's probably another homage to Halloween, because that's the one song that actually plays in the movie, Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult, the original version. So yet another homage to Halloween.
Yeah, and we actually went to see we went to see one location from that movie, which was the fountain scene.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was part of our trip to go to Walker Stalker Con in San Francisco. And we were so close to where they filmed Scream that we went to go visit the beach, Schoolhouse Beach. From I Know What You Did Last Summer, as well as the fountain. And it was a long drive. It was on our way up. We had been driving for hours, but it was worth it.
Yes.
Like I said, at the time, I wasn't as big a Scream fan as I am now. But even I was like, oh my God, we're sitting at that fountain. And we kind of recreated the scene as much as we could. And it was like nerdgasm. It was a lot of fun. I geeked out. I geeked out for sure.
Yeah, if he was geeking out, I was geeking out.
Oh, he was like inside his head.
And for those, I kind of got overzealous. If there's some folks out there who haven't seen this movie, basically what it's about is a serial killer on the loose who's obsessed with horror movies. And it's basically just out to kill pretty young girls and, in a classic slasher.
Sounds like my kind of movie.
Right. And I could go on and on about Scream 1. A lot of people already know about Scream 1. It speaks for itself. It's so great. So, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you're a fan of classics and you haven't seen it, check it out. You'll love it. If you're, teenager at this point and you haven't heard of the classics, check it out. You'll still freaking love it.
And that's probably one thing I would say is, there's a viewer, there's kids that are becoming horror fans. There's old timer horror fans that predate us. And then there's horror fans in our age range. And there's just a lot of times time for rediscovering a movie franchise. And that's what I will definitely say that Frank did for me with this film franchise. Because for me, it was just like in the stack of movies in the collection, it really wasn't anything special. But after kind of seeing it through his eyes, I really was like, this is an amazing film. We even saw it in 35 millimeter at the New Beverly Theater.
It's a double feature.
A double feature with Scream 1 and Scream 2. And that night changed it entirely for me because, hate to sound like a film geek, but if you watch something in 35 millimeter, that's the way it was projected in a theater screen in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. So when you're watching it that way, it's different than if you were to watch something on a television.
Like a Blu-ray or
something.
Or a
Blu-ray,
like
yeah. Blu-ray may look sharper or whatever, but there's just something about the the passing of frames with a light being projected through it, and it made you feel like you were back in the mid 90s again. And it, again, kind of like the other screenings we've been to, seeing it on the widescreen in a room with like-minded people and with that sound, I was like, this is a modern classic.
Yeah.
I finally got to that point. And like Frank said, there's a lot of different, there's documentaries out there that cover things about the filming of it. And we're just kind of giving our point of view. And, we definitely want you guys to be able to take what we're saying. And in addition to some of the other stuff that's already out there.
Because there's an amazing documentary called Still Screaming.
Oh, that goes into a lot of detail
on
about
each film.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to throw in real quick. We saw the double feature, in 35 millimeter. And I think and then like a couple of years later, they had the 20th anniversary where Leo was unfortunately unable to go with me. But
and they were in LA.
Yeah, and they were holding the first movie only at the Vista Theater, which was the filming location for the intro to Scream 2. So
the interior.
Yes.
Because the exterior was the Rialto.
Right.
Across the street from where I used to work at Blockbuster in South Pasadena.
Lucky guy. And there was like cosplayers there. I dressed up in my my Ghostface. And it's funny because I sat down when I took my seat. I sat down. I was taking pictures behind me of what it looked like from Scream 2, where she's up on the stage, she's kind of looking, and then there was two other guys sitting next to me that were both Ghostface as well. So it kind of
it's surreal.
And it kind of like recreated that whole scene in Scream 2.
That's cool.
That's a good time for me to switch into
perfect transition.
Yeah.
Scream 1 and Scream 2 tied in. Let's go right in to Scream 2. What are your thoughts on Scream 2?
Scream 2 is one of the most underrated horror sequels of all time. And it's my personal favorite sequel of all time. Halloween 4 probably my second. Yeah. It's a close.
And he likes Halloween 4
and I love Halloween 4.
A lot.
Scream 2 is underappreciated. I love everyone that loves Scream 2. That shares the same passion for it. Back in the day, I loved the concept of sequels, a continuation of these characters and the story that I loved.
That's what I love about horror movies, because I think horror does it more, other than maybe the James Bond movies or the old Godzilla movies. There wasn't really another genre that continues into sequel. It's kind of unique to the horror genre. I mean, you're kind of getting it more now with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and stuff like that. But before all that, if you wanted something with a lot of sequels,
horror was the way to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this actually, what's cool is, with the Scream franchise, it's every movie is about turning something onto itself. This one the first sequel, it focused on sequels. There was a killer that was, Sydney is now in college. There's a killer that's on the loose again, trying to make their sequel to the Woodsboro murders from the first movie. And at this point you have, Courtney Cox's character is already made or helped make the movie Stab, and based on those first killings, and all the returning characters. You got Courtney Cox, you got David Arquette, Jamie Kennedy's back, plus an all new amazing cast with Jerry O'Connell.
I didn't like him at first. I'm like, why is the Stand By Me kid in this movie? But in the subsequent reviewings, I'm like, oh, he's great.
Yeah, he's really great. He was a great addition, and one of my favorite additions to Timothy Oliphant, Elise Neal, who played Hallie. Everybody did great, but my favorite addition to this cast, and he came out very briefly in the first movie, was Liev Schreiber as Cotton Weary. He was the biggest red herring of this movie.
Yeah, because he was so aggressive.
Yeah.
In his wanting to get a piece of it.
Yeah.
And tying it into the first movie, because he was barely in the first movie.
Yeah,
he was like
just
an
a
honorable mention.
Yeah. It was a news report, him getting escorted into the car, and he kind of gives us a look at the camera. And then he comes in because Courtney Cox brings him on board to do this interview.
Surprise interview that really gets
under Cindy's skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's so desperate to get like you said, get a chunk of that stardom. Is that what the word? Stardom? Yeah. Stardom that everyone else got. He felt like that he was robbed of because Cindy falsely, accused him, and he was put in jail.
And I think that's one thing that the part 2 started delving into is like, you can't have something that goes into the public eye like the Woodsboro Massacre and then not expect, either the news to blow it out of proportion, not expect Hollywood to turn it into a movie, which is exactly what they did. And those things I appreciated the first time I saw it, but I think I wanted Scream 1.5 when I saw Scream 2 originally. I wanted him to be in high school. I wanted it to be the same, setup, but I really learned to love and appreciate the growth that occurs in the film, in the characters. Like Dewey's in a different place, Gail is in a different place. They're kind of the more grown-up versions than we first saw. And I ended up, like I said, I don't want to repeat it over and over, but I really learned to love it a lot.
Like you said, there's a lot of growth. Dewey, like you said, is in a different place. He's always been looking after Sydney, even in the first movie. He felt that it was his duty, sort of. And he comes back, he's worried about her. Right away, he's a red herring again. Because,
for those of you who don't know what a red herring is, it's like the whodunit.
Yeah.
A lot of people are presented as possible suspects. And that's one thing that I like and don't like about the Scream movies is that they make you easily uncomfortable because you don't know where to put your trust in a character. You don't know if you're like, oh, I like this guy. But wait, maybe he's the one. Yeah. Or maybe she's the one. And I think a first-time view for me, Scream movies always makes me nervous. Which in a sense, I guess the movie's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Right, yeah.
But in subsequent viewings, you're like, oh, I already know what the payoffs are and who the red herrings are. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in.
So real quick, spoiler warning right here. I'm going to talk about some of the ending of the film. A lot of people didn't like the killer reveal as Mrs. Loomis. I personally freaking love it because it's a nice throwback to Mrs. Voorhees from Friday the 13th.
Let me interject here for a second. Again, this is a new convert appreciating the series, but the first time I saw it, it was like a punch in the gut. Like I thought the series had hit a low, and I'm like, Roseanne's sister is a killer. That was literally almost verbatim the words out of my mouth at that moment. I'm like, Roseanne's sister, because the character Laurie Metcalf, she plays the sister of Roseanne in the old Roseanne TV show. And it was a big letdown for me. But that's the one thing I will say about subsequent viewing and then seeing it through the eyes of a person who appreciates, which is actually, like I said, one of the reasons that we wanted to do this in the first place was like, look at it through our eyes. Let's explain to you the way we see it. And then maybe that might make you guys see it a little bit different yourselves. So yeah, just want to say I hate it. I can honestly say the word hated it. I hated that ending the first 2 times, maybe. I've since grown to love it. I since see it the kind of the way that he sees it. It was just like, oh yeah, the mother. But more than just the homage to Friday the 13th, but more of like the reasons behind it. That whole abandonment thing and like what you couldn't do to help your son and all of this. So,
and there are people, and it makes it more realistic to me because there are mothers out there that no matter what their child does, they're going to stand behind them no matter what. And as a parent myself, it's kind of like, man, like, would I, if someone murdered my son, even though he did some really bad stuff, like what would I do? How would I react? And in this case, I mean, she kind of just wants revenge. And Mickey, who was was revealed first, he was just in it for the glory. And then, the trial, it's all about the trial. He's going to blame the movies type thing. And that one I didn't care about, but she dismisses of him pretty quickly when she gets revealed. She kind of shoots him. And she's like, yeah, it's not about you. I just used you as a, thing. It's all about my revenge plot, and I'm going to get my revenge for my son. And I thought Laurie Metcalf, at the time I was only like 10 when it came out, because it came out a year after. I didn't recognize her at first as being from Roseanne, because I was young.
That's where our age difference comes into play. Yeah. I'm like, Roseanne's sister, really?
And I watched Roseanne all the time with my family, my mom and my sisters. And I just didn't, she just looked so different to me, and I just didn't recognize her. But if I would have watched it now, and I would have recognized, she's always in bits and pieces of the movie, I probably would have guessed, not to toot my own horn, but I probably would have guessed her as a suspect when I didn't at first, because she's always in at the right moments, you know what I mean? Like she's in right after what's her name, Sarah Michelle Gellar gets killed, she's there. Oh, I gotta go, I got a deadline.
I think they played her off as having the wanting to kind of be the next Gale Weathers.
Yeah.
So that would
she was her idol.
Yeah, she was trying to maybe supersede her status, so then she was trying to be there. I mean, I never took it as that might have been her. That's why I think the ending to me was like, wait, her? But it was, it ended up, that's the thing about when you play a red herring, is it could literally be anyone, and maybe only the writer who set the track down knows exactly how that fits into play.
Yeah, and it's fun. I'm so glad that it wasn't anyone else, because I'm glad it wasn't Derek, the boyfriend, because it was different from the first movie. I didn't want it to repeat itself. Mickey, actually, at the time when I was watching it in the theaters for the first time, when Mickey is revealed, I'm like, who the hell is that? Because he's only in the first half of the movie. Right. He disappears at a certain point for the rest of the film. And like I said, if I would have watched it now, I'd been like, where did that guy go? And the cameraman is a suspect. He's so it's funny because there's a part where Dewey gets stabbed, and then he comes to get wheeled out on the stretcher at the end. That's kind of history repeating itself from the first movie, but I loved it because Randy got killed previously on in the film, and which is also another brilliant decision that was made. At the time, Randy was my favorite character. I hated that he got killed. I was like, man, that's so stupid. And then, but it was so brilliant because it had to be done to make the killer seem like he's not holding anything back. Anybody can go. And I think it was Randy because he was maybe, I would have probably chose Randy just because he was the most, knowledgeable about movies. There's a scene where Dewey and Randy are talking about the possible suspects in the little cafe, and we've actually been there.
Yes, and that was another day that also changed my mind on what I thought about Scream 2. Again, it was a struggle to get me, because to me it was the lowest in the series. At the time, I had only seen 1, 2, and 3. I made up my mind before I'd seen 4. But it was... I found more things wrong with it than I liked. I think I liked just a handful of things that had happened in the movie, but when we went to go visit the locations, it's at UCLA, the school, and we saw the cafe.
And we sat in
the exact same seats, and we took a selfie showing us sitting where those characters were sitting. And there's something about visiting a location that hasn't changed from one of your favorite movies or one of his favorite movies that ended up being a favorite of mine. And there's almost no feeling to describe it. You feel like you stepped into the movie. It's in 3D. It's a physical space you can interact in. And there was a couple other things from Scream 2 that were shot at UCLA. Yeah,
there was the scene where Dewey gets rolled out on the stretcher at the end, like I mentioned. There's a scene where Sydney's running up to it's supposed to be the exterior of the theater, and she's running across like the the grass area or whatever. And then one of the biggest scenes was the scene in the video archives room where Gale and Dewey are kind of reviewing the videotapes, and it's in this lecture hall. And what's funny is I was looking for this lecture hall. I knew just by pictures of reference of which one it was, and the only room that was unlocked at this in this portion of this building, it happened to be the one that we were looking for.
Hey, we lost our marbles right there. And I think that was the final thing for me where I was just like, all right, it's a great movie. I see all the benefits from this movie. And it's funny, I'm if you haven't noticed by now, someone's very nostalgic. it's like a drug. It really is. Nostalgia is it's a natural, heavy drug. So when I was in those locations, it was like, I felt like invigorated, like, oh my gosh, I watched this movie in the theater with all this excitement in the late 90s. When did this come out?
97.
97.
Less than a year from the first movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So being able to go, oh my gosh, I was there looking at it on the screen, and now I'm standing in the actual location. That was, I think, my final thing I needed to convert me into a Scream 2 fan.
And what I want to say is that this was the last film where Kevin Williamson had complete control over the script. It's funny because in the original script, the ending was completely different. It was leaked, so they had to refilm everything. The original killers, there was like 5 different killers. There was Derek and Hallie. They were the primary ones. Mrs. Loomis, I believe, was still in there as a killer. Mickey was actually one of the heroes who ended up sacrificing himself, I think, for Sidney. And
I didn't know. This is the first time hearing this.
And Cotton Weary ended up being a killer as well. But he got turned kind of like in the actual theatrical release when it was released. Cotton Weary's character seems to be turning on Sidney a little bit after being talked into it by Mrs. Loomis. She put you together. She put you to, she sent you to prison for a year, yada, yada, yada. He kind of like thinks about it. Well, in this version, he actually, I think, went through with it. And it actually ended with Sidney and Cotton Weary shooting each other, and Sidney dies.
And this was filmed, or was this?
And this wasn't filmed. This was just a part of it. This was the original script.
Okay.
But since it got leaked, and thank God it got leaked, because that ending would have sucked.
And it would have killed the entire franchise, because Sidney is the heroine of the movie. She's the reason it's got as much life as it does. Well, that, of course, and Wes Craven's directing and the supporting cast. But I mean, you're lost without your lead. If your lead isn't in there and is someone that the audience can get behind and root for and hope that survives and wants to see the best for them, and she's that in spades.
Yeah, I mean, and as great as a writer as Kevin Williamson was, I think the ending it didn't do it for me when I read the script and when I heard about it. But I'm glad they switched it. It made perfect sense in the end. Sidney survived. I only think Dewey survived after that because they didn't film where he got wheeled out, yada, yada.
Yeah, that was a reshoot because it was originally filmed in Georgia?
I believe so, yeah.
The college was, and then the reshoots and the pickup shoots were done out in LA because the studios are out here and all the post-production houses. So all the stuff that was shot at UCLA was done for convenience sake.
Yeah. So that's a good opportunity for me to go into Scream 3.
So Frank, tell us what you think about Scream 3.
I'll be honest. I just how
I'm ready for this.
Just how I didn't like it at first. It came out in I believe 2000 or 2001, 2000 I think. And I didn't like it. I liked it, a little bit, but it wasn't as good. I feel like it kind of fell off at that point. Like I said, just like Scream 2, I had to make him believe that it was a good movie. I had to get him to change his mind. Yeah. He got me to actually really appreciate Scream 3 a lot more. And so, yeah, it's one of my favorites, probably my third favorite.
Let me ask you this. This is my third favorite in a series of 3 movies.
Right.
It's my 4th favorite in the series of 4 movies. So let me ask you, what elements were you at first kind of hype? Because I mentioned the ones that I was a little hypercritical of in Scream 2. What was the elements in Scream 3 that you were kind of hypercritical of that then you kind of learned to see the more positive side of?
Well, the ending, spoilers, just to get right into it. I didn't like the ending at all. I didn't like the reveal that it was Sidney's long-lost brother.
That was one of my favorite things.
But I actually learned to love it. And another thing I didn't like was the fact that my favorite character from Scream 2, Cotton Weary, got killed right at the freaking beginning.
And that was actually the same way. That was one of the things that I liked actually in the beginning was the change of tone. Because the first movie is set in Woodsboro. Mm-hmm. The second movie is set...
Windsor College.
Yeah. I don't think do they ever really say what state it's in?
I don't think so.
It's kind of, you would assume it's middle America or maybe East Coast. But when you get to Hollywood, I think the opening shot is maybe like the Hollywood sign at night, or then they pan down to like traffic in LA and kind of the lifestyle out here of Cotton Weary being on the phone trying to sell a deal, or like, you know, trying to sell himself. And, you know, I'm not trying to say I know a whole lot about the industry, but I've seen a lot of people in the industry, and that's what it is. You sell yourself. So to see him go have a growth in the series from honorable mention to really interesting red herring to
the hero,
and then now he's got what he's always wanted.
The fame,
He got the fame. So to me, it was a payoff.
Yeah.
It was a payoff to see him do it. And then, you know, he's got the beautiful blonde girlfriend, and then you get the call from a killer with the voice. And the tension is set from the very beginning. And it's like, go, go, go. And then I don't think I was expecting him to die. So then when he did get like you could probably get stabbed in the leg and survive. You can stab him in the back and survive. But I think he got a chest wound.
Yeah.
And and then by the time he started gushing blood, and you're just like, oh, this movie is not playing around. So that's why, to me, it won me over in the very, very beginning. But I can also kind of see, like, why would you kill one of my favorite characters? But they did it with, what's his name? Video store guy? Randy. They did it with Randy in the beginning in 2.
Yeah.
So,
But it's along those lines where it's like, you know, and oh dang, anybody can go type thing. They want to start off with a bang. I think the killer even gives him like an out, like, you know, just tell me where Cindy is. That's who I'm after. You know.
Right.
And then he's already in her apartment, Cotton's apartment, and he's still the hero because he goes after, you know, trying to protect his girl. And there's actually 3 different openings that were filmed, and they're on like the deleted scenes, I believe, of part 3. And there's a scene where he's climbing out the roof, the skylight, and then he gets stabbed in the ankle, and then he gets brought there. Yeah. But it served its purpose, and actually I feel that it was actually the right call. Even though that's all I asked for. See the positive in it. Because when we first started hanging out, we started talking about what movies that we liked. I'm like, yeah, I'm a Friday the 13th fan. You know, I like this movies and these movies and these movies. And he's like, what do you think about Scream? I'm like, it's all right. And then it was like, I really like Scream 3. And he's like, it's a terrible piece of garbage. They did this, this, and this. And I'm like, I think everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I was like, let me see if I can get him to see the positive. As he did with me, Scream 2, and, you know, maybe there's parts of me that are still trying to get him to love the things that I love about Scream 3, because one is iconic, again, overly used word, iconic, but 3, I love, and I thought about this as we were prepping for today's episode, and I think one of the reasons I love it is I love old stories of old, corrupt Hollywood. And the dark secrets in the most glamorous place in the world where celebrities live, the world where movies are made, the world where people would do anything to be a part of it, and to see the corruption and the dark secrets come to light. And then the fact that in Scream 2 that was Stab 1 that they showed clips of with like Heather Graham playing Drew Barrymore's character and Tori Spelling playing Neve Campbell's character. And then here it's like we're on Scream 3 production. 3. Oh, Scream 3,
I'm sorry,
Stab
we're
3.
watching Scream 3 and then we're on Stab 3 in production. So it was like it for my chronology that I love in my head, it was perfect. It sold me right away.
And I love the Stab 3 set because it recreates the original Woodsboro.
Yeah,
the house,
that was awesome.
Which I kind of didn't understand because they recreated the whole Tatum garage scene. That's in there for some reason. Maybe it's a flashback. I don't know. They created Cindy's house. I think they created part of Stu's house a little bit. But I love that because it's kind of a good mirror image because she's, you know, on the set. Cindy's on the set. She's getting chased through her house, just like in the first movie. She runs up the stairs, but this time she's a little bit. She outsmarts him very well. And one of the let me go back to the beginning.
Even the scene where they're like in the first movie where the door to her bedroom interlocks with her closet door and she's able to block. It was a nice callback, and I think that's what I liked a lot. It's all those little details that I liked to be able to see the connection between the different series of movies. How you have one storyline or story arc and then seeing it carried across. And yeah, being able to see Sid walking around her house, but it's a set. It's just like, my God, how far we've come. And we're not just giving you the same thing over and over. We're trying to change it, redefine it. And, you know, Wes Craven's at the helm of all of this. Of course, you know, the writer is a very important part of the storytelling. But, you know, you still have Wes Craven behind the lens. And his sensibilities and his wisdom. And then, you know, I can go on and on, but yeah, that's one of the things I really love. Tonight, if I had just the Scream movies in front of me, I would watch part 3. Like, I'd watch it right now just because I'm like, dude, this is a great movie. It's got so much hidden in it, and that's why there's sequels, and that's why there's different interpretations. And
real quick, I got overzealous. I got to hit myself. For those of you who haven't seen it, it takes place in Hollywood. There's a killer that's, killing people from the set from this cast of Stab 3. One thing I didn't like is that Cindy kind of takes a back seat to everything in this movie. It's more focused on Dewey and Gale, really. And because she's off by herself, it kind of cuts to her a couple times before she joins the main cast as she comes out of hiding. Just like how Leah Sharp's character Carton Weary was my favorite addition to Scream 2 as part of the new cast, Patrick Dempsey,
he was awesome.
He loved. In a great scene where they bring Jamie Kennedy's character back.
That was cool.
Yeah. It's very clever.
I've never seen a movie where a character is included in the third movie of the trilogy at the time.
Yeah.
Via VHS tape.
Right.
Yes, his sister ends up going out to Hollywood and visiting this movie set, which it's crazy how she got on there.
Right, yeah, I was about to say
you really
that.
kind of can't get on a movie set unless you are there to visit somebody. And she's just kind of wandering around, and she says, you know, I got something that I want you to see. And they painted it as if he had shot it at college.
Before he died, yeah.
In college, at Windsor College before he died. And he laid out the rules of the trilogy, and he basically played his role. Mm-hmm. I just think that's really cool how you can include a character who's been dead. It's almost like what they did later on in the Saw movies. It was like it made you seem like the character of so-and-so had never really died. Yeah. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, a lot of people say that it's kind of like a cop-out. They're just found a stupid way to bring his character back to make the fans of his happy.
No, I don't think it was stupid. Yeah, I think it was really good.
Yeah, and I think he's even actually wearing the same outfit that he was wearing in Scream.
He had the same sideburns. I remember that. Yeah. I was just like, hey, he looks just kind of like he did.
Yeah. So it was a continuity thing. But yeah, it was great. And he laid out like you said, he laid out the rules. If this killer does come back, you know, there's a few things you got to remember. You know, anybody, including the main character, can die. This means you, Sid. You know, and it's so funny. And then it's like, because you know, it's like you don't have anyone there to explain the rules and to help these characters, because he was always there to give them that information. And it's a cool way to bring him back, I thought.
For sure.
And I personally, is my favorite character. I loved seeing him back.
And the fact that he worked at a video store.
Yeah.
And then he came back as a videotape. He was like reincarnated as a VHS tape. And he was able to be carried around and kind of put it in the machine.
And I'll probably come back as like a pizza or something in my next life.
Or an asthma inhaler.
Right. Yeah.
We'll carry Frank around as an asthma inhaler.
And let's see. The great Lance Henriksen is
I was about to say, don't forget the honorable mention of Lance Henriksen playing an old movie producer. And he was good in that role because Lance has that kind of gravelly voice no matter what he does. If he's playing if he's in a family movie or if he's doing whatever, he's got a gravelly voice. And just to kind of, again, he kind of played the red herring. He looked like he had something to hide.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take the reins a little bit here.
Okay.
What did you think of the ending scene of because that's probably honestly one of my favorite things, especially since Frank and I actually got a chance to check out the actual location where they filmed that part of the movie, which is, it's supposed to be the movie that Lance Henriksen character's house, and there was supposed to be like a rap party, not necessarily a rap party because production got halted, but it was just a party for everyone to get together. And
it was for Roman's birthday though.
Oh, that's what it was. Roman's birthday. Roman, the director, which I'm 99.9% sure is named after Roman Polanski, because there's no other really directors named Roman. And It's one of my favorite. Like, it makes me want to watch the movie right now in like a big TV with loud sound, just because I love that whole ending scene. What do you think about that ending scene?
I loved it. There's still one thing that I didn't like was the whole voice change. No, it's a small thing. This is nitpicking. It's the voice changer where he can talk like anybody. I thought that was
okay, I'll agree with that. That was a bit too much where it was like, I could sound like this. I could sound like this. Really?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be kind of some more rules to technology.
Yeah. The whole chase scenes between the killer and each of the remaining cast throughout the house was really well done, with all the trap doors and all of that, and like I said, being his house, it's automatically, Lance Henriksen is one of the biggest red herrings at this point, with his involvement with Sidney Prescott's mother.
Because that was the real, and that's, again, and now I'm remembering why I really love it, because it went all the way back to Sidney's mom tried to be an actress in Hollywood, and then that's how she became a floozy, for lack of a better term, because she, spoiler alert, she had attended this party that Lance Henriksen's character had thrown, and back in the pre-Harvey Weinstein days, this was how things were done. And he even says, Lance Henriksen says it in the movie. He's like, a girl like her went to a party like that because she knew what someone in that party could do for her. So she wasn't involved in anything she didn't want to be a part of.
Right.
But it actually changed her as a person. They connected that to how she ended up cheating on her husband with Cotton Weary, which ended up...
And Billy's father also.
And there was like home video footage of her going into a hotel room with Billy Loomis's father.
Yeah.
So that connection, I definitely liked. And it was interesting to see it in the location. And it was fun because it was also the location for Halloween H2O, the school. But there's parts of the house that were very obviously used in Scream. The pool, which in Halloween H2O is covered, and it's like more of a quad. And in this one, it was the pool. So when we first walked in, I'm like, that's the pool. And then up there, I'm literally getting chills. I'm such a nerd. That was like, that's where Ghostface came out of the window. And then that's where the thing was right there. And then, oh my God, over here. Oh my God, over there. And then there were things that, it was this weird kind of matching to stuff from H2O, Halloween H2O, and Scream 3. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to live in this house for the rest of my life.
And I believe that the part where Dewey and Gale are tied up, and prior to that, before they get tied up, that's where all the cast is kind of chilling. And Dewey shows up, and Parker Posey and all them show up, and they're like...
That living room area.
Yeah, that living room area with the fireplace. That was actually the same room where Michael and H2O fall. She stabs him and falls off the balcony.
Where he's flipping the tables. And that's the thing. You go to that location and you're just like, oh my God, it's this. Oh my God, it's that. And it's just like...
It's changed up so much that you would not be able to tell.
But when you're in the house and you know those movies like the back of your hand, you're like, oh wow, look, this is where I keep, Michael flips the thing. Or we saw it's like a little mini balcony on the second floor where Laurie had pushed Michael out and he fell onto the table, and then LL Cool J came out. But then, like you said, it's also the place where everyone was kind of hanging out, and it's right by the pool. And I'm like, if I do anything good in this life to get me enough money to live in a house, I am going to live in this house. And I'll just sit here and think about Halloween H2O and Scream 3 all day long.
Recreate every scene.
I'll die a happy man.
Yeah,
for sure.
And going back to that whole ending sequence, I love that entire sequence, the entire third act of the movie. And then the reveal, it was very, when you watch it, you're like, because Roman fakes his death at one point. Parker Posey's character finds him in the basement.
Yeah, in like a coffin or something.
And you're like, oh well, he's gone. Well, who could it be? There's Patrick Dempsey still alive. He comes back at the very last minute, and he's like she shoots Ghostface, and he disappears, and then all of a sudden Patrick Dempsey appears. And you're like, oh man,
and he plays it off too. Like he's just like, I was invited here. I'm not quoting it right, but it's just like, what's going on?
Yeah, he's like,
and he looks so suspicious.
She's like, she's like, you came alone? Where's your partner? And he just kind of like, he's like...
Yeah, he's got this sinister look. And
then he like stops. He's like...
But he doesn't stop the sinister look.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro, really?
Yeah,
You're making yourself look like you're really guilty here.
But it doesn't last long. And then Ghostface comes out and he ends up being, kind of saving Sydney. And then the whole reveal of it being Roman was like, okay, like that's my first, like, I can recall thinking like, I thought he was dead, but who the hell is he? What is he doing? What's his motive? And it comes to find out it's her long lost brother who he wanted revenge because she got the life that he never had.
And I'll give you my perspective on it. Again, it's like, our thoughts are different in terms of like, he thought the mother thing was cool, I thought it was dumb, and then vice versa. I'm like, it was genius because Roman was the director.
Right.
He's the director of Stab 3. And it was like, it makes so much sense for it to be the director because a director, that's what he does. He orchestrates. Mm-hmm. He wants this here. He wants this here. He guides the motivation. He puts all the pieces into play for a presentation. So to me, I thought it was, I knew it was Roman because, obviously, because in the movie he wore glasses, but when he took off the Ghostface mask, obviously he didn't have his glasses on, but I'm like, it's the director in the producer's house, and the mom tried to be an actress. Like, to me, it all tied in together. Mm-hmm. But I can also see someone who would think that it was just like, wait a minute, who is this, and why is he the one that we're supposed to go, oh, him?
Yeah. And I believe that he was going to pass it off like Sydney was the killer because he says, that's before he kills Lance Henriksen's character. He has the tape play like, I know who you are. I know what you did to my mother.
Yeah, that's again where that voice changer, it went a little too far.
Yeah. And then he cuts a dude's throat. And I think he actually broke Lance Henriksen's hand when he threw him down.
Yeah, because Lance Henriksen, no, I think he broke his nose or...
No, I think it was his hand because his hands were behind his back. And I think
he got overzealous and he had no way of breaking his fall or something. Yeah.
And but I ended up coming to love the reveal of her brother. He's like, that's all I wanted. And
well, and I'll just say this, when you spend time with someone and you're watching horror movies together, you kind of want them to like what you like. You kind of want to be on the same page with them. I'm still working on Halloween 3 and him. It's a long, long road ahead. But I was like, he already likes Scream. I know he's going to find the good points of Scream 3. So thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I ask for.
And I thank you for you liking Scream 2.
Yeah. See, compromise. Friendship, compromise. It's good.
1, 2, 3. It goes in order of my first to my least, well, right now, my least favorite.
So then, Frank, what are your thoughts on Scream 4? I already know. You guys are in for, I don't know if it's a treat or something else. But Frank, what do you think of Scream 4?
This should be interesting.
To say the least.
Now, I'll be honest. When I first saw this movie, even leading up to the movie, because it came out in 2011, the last movie was like 10 years ago. Scream 3 came out in 2001, 2000.
Yeah, it was a pretty big gap.
Yeah, it was a big
More
gap.
than the other sequels.
Right. This movie focused on remakes, because that was the thing at the time, and which was, okay, that's cool. When I first, even leading up to it, I was getting on these message boards. I was like trying to defend it, and I was, and I was so hyped about this movie. I think I saw it like 2 or 3 times in theaters. I can even go back on my Facebook, on this day post, and I'm like raving about it. This was so great movie. After viewing it several times since then, this movie completely sucks. And I will tell you why. You are not going to get me to like this movie.
No, I actually do not. I don't care much for this movie. I saw it once. I think I may have seen, no, I saw it once. Mm-hmm. And the thing that turned me off was I didn't care at all about the younger cast that was introduced. I think that's actually one of the things that you said you might have liked a little bit.
No.
No, okay, never mind.
No.
I was wrong. It was nice to see Sydney. It was nice to have a return.
Yeah.
But number one, they didn't shoot it where they shot the original Woodsboro.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have, and I'm a big person about sets. I love sets and I love art direction. I love art design. So I was like, that's not the original thing. You guys probably like saved 50 cents and now you go to this other location. The best things I liked about it was the voice of Ghostface came back, Sydney came back, and Dewey and Gale came back. Other than that, I didn't care for the rest of it.
Roger Jackson, the voice of Ghostface, came back, which is great. Let me start off with the beginning, okay? The opening of this movie is so stupid because you have, I believe it starts
Don't hold
off
back,
with,
Frank.
I believe it starts off with the Lucy Hale.
How do you really feel?
And then like the Lucy Hale thing, and then it was like stab 6. You know, they get killed, and it's like
oh my god,
6.
yeah. You know what? Now that you're saying it, I'm remembering.
Yeah.
That was a stupid intro. I think it was trying to be smart.
Yeah, it's trying to be clever and kind of like funny, but it just ended up being stupid. And then it cuts to these other 2 girls watching Scream 6,
Yeah.
which is
It almost felt like, am I watching the right movie, or did the trailers not finish?
No. Like
I remember that.
Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin, they cut to them and they're like, oh, yada yada, these movies are stupid. And then Anna Paquin's character kills. Oh no, sorry, Kristen Bell's character kills her, and then it cuts to stab 7. And
so
then,
basically, they did what Deadpool did.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Fourth wall break inside of a fourth wall break. That's like
it's too
16
confusing.
walls or something. Yeah.
And then it cuts to these other 2 girls, and their acting is so. I hate. And what annoys me is that like Wes Craven, as much as I love him, I think he gave them a lot of praise, or somebody did. Like, come on, they were stupid. Their acting was stupid. Even the ghost, the mask looks different. It's the shape of it. Trust me, I pay attention.
I was about to say, yeah. The same way I noticed the difference in hockey masks and Frank doesn't.
Right.
I'm like, the Ghostface face changed?
Yes, it did.
I don't know. There's sparkles on the robe? No, I didn't know that.
No. Yeah, you're right, yeah. But even small things like that I didn't like. The whole opening was ridiculous. And let's see, it jumps to Sydney's returning to Woodsboro for her book signing. And she's grown. She's this, you know, she's a successful author. She's writing this. She was in the 3rd movie. She was doing a crisis line to help women. This one, she wrote a book to help women and to give her story. And there's Gail and Dewey return, like you said, but Dewey is so wasted in this movie. Gail has a little bit more to do, but both of their characters are wasted. I know it was trying to put the focus on the new kids, Sydney's cousin, who played by Emma Roberts, which she's good in some things. She was the wrong choice to play Jill in this movie, and I'll get to that in a minute. But and I'm going to spoiler territory here in a minute, so spoilers. The fact that, first of all, I didn't know Rory Culkin was going to be the killer. My friend of mine, Mark, he's like, as soon as Rory Culkin was cast, I knew he had to be a killer, because of just who he was, and
because he looks like Macaulay Culkin.
Right, maybe. And but I didn't know it was going to be him. I knew, dealing with the movie, dealing with remakes, I knew it was going to be Jill. I was hoping I was wrong, because they've already done a family member.
What's her name?
Hannah Panettiere?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be her.
She was more like kind of like the Randy 2 in a way.
Yeah.
Because she was more knowledgeable than Rory's character in a way. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it ended up being Jill, and she's like beating the hell out of Sydney. She's like this 70-pound.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well, I hadn't even thought of that, because I dismissed pretty much the entire movie. And then one day we were talking about it, and he said that exact thing. Like, how could this skinny little girl, and Sydney had survived all the events of the first 3 Scream movies, and now this skinny little girl is beating her up.
Yeah. She beat the hell out of Mickey. She beat the hell out of Stu, and all that.
But she can't beat up Emma Roberts.
She beat the hell out of her fight in Scream 3 between her and Roman was amazing.
Yeah. Ooh. He liked something in Scream 3. He called it amazing.
And and she beat the crap out of him. But this girl is 70 pounds, whatever, and she's like beating the crap out of her. Granted, Cindy has a wound, whatever. But still. Yeah. And she literally like grabs her and throws her up against the wall at one point. I'm like, come on, man. Actually, that wasn't the main, the ending of Kevin Williams' screenplay, because that whole hospital end scene wasn't even in it. It ended with, I believe, Dewey telling her that Sydney might not be dead. And then it was a cliffhanger. It ended on a cliffhanger. The first Scream movie to end on a cliffhanger, which I wasn't a big fan of when reading that script, but the script was so much better. There was even a scene where there was more red herrings, not to mention the dialogue was better. There's a scene where Jill, when she gets attacked and she gets into the hospital, there's a scene where one of the doctors, I believe, goes up to Sydney and is like, hey, do you remember me? And he's the brother of Stephen Orth, who was the first victim in Scream 1, tied to the chair. It was his brother. And that was a good red herring, because it's like, oh, you know, you don't remember me, but yet, you know, it's like, you know, you were kind of like the star of this whole thing type. And my brother no one ever remembers my brother. No one ever talks about him.
Yeah, I don't feel like watching Scream 4 anytime soon.
Yeah.
This is just cementing that. I'm like, I think I'm good passing this for the rest of the eternity. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, unless I'm at a Scream marathon and it's included, and maybe the cast is there or just Nev Campbell is there.
Right.
Other than that, I'm not gonna watch this movie.
So let me talk a little bit more about dialogue in this movie. Probably the worst lines in this movie are F. Bruce Willis.
The cops, right?
Yeah.
Who are the cops?
Anthony Anderson?
Anthony Anderson, I think is his name.
And
The
I
other
forget
guy.
the other guy. The other guy, he was in like Jennifer's Body or something. Not
He was
Adrian
in
Brody.
Jennifer's Body.
Something Brody.
Adrian Brody.
No, that's
Oh no, that's Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
Just goes to show this guy's
Yeah.
kind of forgettable.
Right.
But he'd been in like, I don't know, like some teen shows or something. Yeah.
Like I said, he's in Jennifer's Body. Yeah, that's the only thing I know him from.
You can't say that statement without causing my eyes to show. He's in Jennifer's Body.
Yeah.
Or Jennifer. In most slasher movies, no one's really looking for the infamy. That's part of turning this on itself and revealing it through the eyes of the media, which is Gail Weathers as a reporter, and then done as a book, and then done as a movie. People want in on that. People want their 15 minutes of fame. People want their moment in the spotlight. And that's one thing I mean, the movie was disappointing. Some of the kills were pretty decent, but unfortunately, it is a very forgettable movie. I wish they would have maybe gone out on one more, and then or maybe even not done 4. But then it actually ended up giving us the series. Is there anything else you want to say about? Well, like I said, I'm sure you can go on and on about 4, but what other iterations? Because I know there was a Scream TV series.
The Scream TV series I did not like at all. I watched both seasons.
I sat through every single episode.
I was hoping,
and I hated every minute.
And I was hoping, it would have surprised me in some way.
So basically, it dwindled for you. One to this, 2, 3, 4 series. That's your level of acceptance, right?
I didn't have a problem with the cast of the series. Like you said, you like the cast.
I like the cast a lot.
I didn't think they did too bad. It's just, like you said, it's not what...
There was like a Randy character.
Yeah.
There was like... all the archetypes were there.
Yeah.
And
the
it
jock,
was... they were all
priest.
there, and the kind of high school drama. But then the one thing that I did feel like they contributed to it was, instead of, these days where everybody's texting or using an app like Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, all of the stalking that was done through apps. Mm-hmm. It was done through texting. It was done through like Snapchat. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. But, if someone had redone Texas Chainsaw Massacre into a series, and we're like, instead of a chainsaw, we're using, I don't know, a weed whacker, and instead of a human skin face, he's going to be wearing an eco-friendly, I don't know, what's that? Non-GMO, calorie-free, whatever. And, he's going to be doing free lawn work for everyone since he's got the weed whacker. If they overly reinterpreted one of my favorite films, I'd be upset too. But I think, again, it's one of those things where this is literally hit or miss. I liked it. Frank didn't.
So that's all the time we got for today.
Yes.
And I really hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on this franchise, because it's something I love very, very much. Hope I changed a couple of minds here and there.
He definitely changed my mind when it came to Scream 2 back in the days. And I'm glad he's not trying to push Scream 4 on me. I'm glad he equally dislikes that movie.
Oh, yeah.
For next week's episode is another continuation of my Friday the 13th viewpoint. We are actually going to run through Friday the 13th 4, 5, and 6. Some people call it the Jarvis trilogy.
Yeah.
I'm not used to calling it that, but I recently rewatched the first 6 movies just to kind of make sure I had all my P's and Q's straight for being able to discuss these. And I'll be damned if it isn't the Jarvis trilogy. Right. It really does create... I think I never saw it as a trilogy because it's played by 3 different actors.
Yeah.
And in 3 different parts of his life. But he actually is one of Jason's greater opponents. So I'll be diving into that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. And I'm actually really glad Frank got an opportunity to talk about what he really loves about Scream.
It released a lot of stress too.
Yeah, exactly. Like and we're glad we really got a chance to share this with you guys. And that's another reason why we do this, to give part of our legacy to you guys, so you guys know our love and passion for movies. And we're excited to continue to share these with you. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you.